Hello and welcome everyone. I'm HatTopGaming and we have another backlog review. Today's episode is on the critically acclaimed and 7th generation legend in Dishonored. Made by the now recently dissolved Arcane Studios, I finally went back and played this classic for the first time. And if you were into YouTube gaming at all during the 2010s, you saw this game in nearly every top 10 list. It was one of those games that was held in such high regard, similar to Bioshock, that I just never got around to playing. One of those situations where because I constantly was bombarded by it, and ironically enough, maybe not want to play it. But now that I have, I'm here to let you all know what I think 14 years later. Just as always, we'll go over the same three things in story, gameplay, and performance on the Steam Deck before giving the game a rating out of 10. And don't forget to stick around to the end of the video for a sneak peek on my next review. But with all that out of the way, let's begin. Story wise, this is one of the few games from back then where the story wasn't really all that known to me. Like, you couldn't escape spoilers for certain games like Mass Effect and Dying Light and so on. And while I knew certain aspects about the game's story, I didn't know the actual plot, beyond the general concept which made the experience a whole lot better for me. So, to summarize, the game revolves around you, Corvo, a now disgraced assassin who is framed for having killed the Empress and captured her daughter. Through a series of events, you and what allies you have locate Emily, the Emperor's daughter, and take down those who have killed her to begin with. All the while, a plague being spread by rats is tearing the city apart, and those unlucky enough to catch it end up dead or worse. You are given a series of open ended missions in which you must obtain info, kill targets, and do a number of other things in an attempt to restore order and place Emily upon the throne as the rightful heir. Of course, not everything is as it seems, and if you have a keen eye, you will catch on to that yourself. The game has multiple choices for you to make that ultimately affect the story and, more importantly, how bad the city gets. As the more you kill, there will be less soldiers to patrol the streets, the disease will continue to spread, and the entirety of the town and city just overall gets just worse. Raise too much chaos, and you will see just how bad things can get. Moving on over to gameplay now, we have a very immersive sim where everything from the level design, powers you obtain, and weapons you yield all play into each other very, very well. Starting with the level design, the game really does its best to not only remind you, but push you to think about how you want to go about completing a level, as of course you can just follow the straightforward path, but with so many nooks and crannies that you can slide into and change, how could you play that way? The level of verticality is something that you rarely see in game. The amount of back alley exits you can take really allow for some great stealth gameplay. Of course, you're more than welcome to just kill every last person you see, and I gotta admit, sometimes I really just did that to make sure no one would accidentally see me, but the game does a good job overall to show you all the different avenues you can take without the need for yellow paint. Every angle, every ledge, every street corner, railing are designed perfectly for you to be able to tell how and when you can interact with them. Now, when it comes to the powers, I really didn't find myself using too many of them. You have a quick teleport ability, which is basically a staple of the game, and the main one you'll be using, no doubt. An eagle eye ability that lets you see through walls, the ability to summon plague infected rats that kill and consume bodies, the ability to mind control people, and more. Of course, how much you use these will be dependent on your playstyle. Personally, I only ever use the teleport and the eagle eye. Everything else was rather niche to me, or just flat out wasn't very necessary in my eyes to use. There's about 8 mainstay powers, and again, how often you use them is really going to be dependent on how you choose to play games. So when it comes to the weapons at your disposal, you have a fair amount. You have a pistol, crossbow with both lethal and non-lethal capabilities, some traps, and a few others. They're all upgradable, of course, and how often you use them will, of course, come down to how quiet or loud you want to approach every situation. Of course, you can also have your trusty sword slash dagger for stealth kills, and your sword for just general combat. Pretty simple. You use the right trigger to swing and the left trigger to block, and occasionally you will have an enemy lock into a sword fight with you where you just spam A in order to win. Frankly, nothing about the gameplay is overly complex, but I think that definitely works to its benefit. This is one of those situations where less is just more. I think the developers definitely knew what they were doing with how they simplified the gameplay. Lastly now, touch on performance. The game ran perfectly on Steam Deck, a nice and steady 60 frames per second. I had the game mostly running on default settings, but I bumped up the textures and shadow quality. Thankfully, I didn't run into any noticeable bugs of any kind, no lagging, stuttering, save issues, etc. The game also didn't put much strain on the battery, so I could comfortably play for hours without needing to worry. One of the best examples of an older title being Steam Deck verified and absolutely being deserving of it. So in the end, where do I land with Dishonored? Well, I'll be upfront with you and say I got the Chaos ending, as I basically all but locked myself into it after the first mission by sounding off all types of alarms and killing most of the guards. Though, from what I understand how the game works, I was liable to get it regardless. I was able to save Emily in the end, and I completed the game on hard mode. I had a pretty good time, and while I knew the general plot of the game, there were still some surprises for me to discover. The side quest stuff and small decisions you can make that alter the story was nice, and ultimately I came away pretty satisfied. While I don't think it's the perfect game in the world by any means, I can definitely see why it was praised so much at the time. Here's my issue though. I beat this game back in May, we're now at the start of July, and after a month of beating the game, I really haven't put too much thought into it. I was just going to give the game an 8, maybe closer to a 9 even, but now I'm leaning closer to a 7. My biggest thing is that while there were some memorable missions in the sense of like, oh, scaling the tower, the very last mission, the party, which was kind of cool, and I guess just the first mission, nothing about the game really stood out to me. Like, it didn't leave a mark on me at all. And obviously, as a backlog gamer, some of that's just going to be kind of the price you pay for waiting to play certain games because you've been exposed to them so often. Like I said, I heard about this game so much growing up. So now playing it, I just don't see it. Like I definitely feel like this is one of those games that because I was not there when it happened, it does not have the same impact on me that it would have. Same thing like something like San Andreas. Again, maybe not the best example to compare it to, but I just feel like it's one of those games where because I didn't experience it at the time, where I can tell this was very much a big deal and definitely innovated and was just something more than what met the eye and like what was expected for games back then. I think because I didn't enjoy it at that time, it just doesn't have that je ne sais quoi for me now. I do think it's still a solid game, but I think I lean closer to a 7 for it. I just don't think it was all that much to me, and I also think that because this game was hyped up so much the way that it was, that leaving it where I did and enjoying it, I had fun with it, but in retrospect, it is like, yeah, I can definitely see why this game was important, but it just wasn't important that much to me. But that's just going to do for me today, guys. I hope you all enjoyed today's backlog review. Once again, I am HatTopGaming. If you like today's video, don't forget to like and subscribe to make sure you don't miss the next one. Don't forget to follow me on social media to keep up to date with everything I got going on with the channel. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I will see you all later. Peace.
I can't afford to lose.